Welcome back to PR with Serena. In this episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about anticipation, anticipating issues and trends, and why that's so important for brands and businesses, and how this sort of happens just like second nature for PRs, people who work in PR and communications. So within the actual, let's say, profession of and the practice of public relations and communications, we forecast, we have to anticipate. Actually, I would say when plans are being devised and designed, when something's about to be launched or some sort of statement is going to be made, some anticipation is always going on in the background. It's always in parallel. How will this land? What will the audience, what will this sort of stakeholder, what will customers think about this? And this kind of anticipation is so important for brands and businesses. And for brands and businesses, especially business owners who are doing it all on their own, you can end up having the sales hat, the marketing hat, the design hat, the development hat, all of these sort of different operational hats on, even creative. But when it comes to public relations and communications and sort of having to do that sort of risk assessment, anticipation, forecasting, and sort of more strategic thinking around how is this going to land? Does this fit into the bigger picture that I'm sort of planning for this brand and business and for what I'm hoping to achieve operationally over the next 12 months? That kind of thinking is hard to come by. So here's some sort of insight for you. I have to apologize that I wasn't able to upload a PR talk episode only because I was so busy trying to get I got it done, but my reputational management course for brands and businesses available on Kajabi and launched my Kajabi site. So that's all done now. A lot of my energy was going into that, and that's why had to skip an episode, but I'm here. So in this PR talk, I want to talk about how essential it is for you as an entrepreneur, a creative, someone who has a business and a brand to sort of weave in some anticipation, some forecasting so that you don't get caught on the back foot. Because when we don't do these sort of things intentionally and deliberately, what ends up happening is you're sort of going along passively and then something arises, an issue, a trend, or something, and it requires your immediate action, but you haven't done any planning around for it. So the way that we are able to anticipate as PRs is because we've done some planning prior to an event taking place. So we've done some planning and forecasting around already for a launch, for a product, for a service, for something that we're doing out there in the business world, in our world. And part of that planning has sort of smart objectives that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, timely. Smart objectives. And also, part of that plan is a way to capture the insight and the performance of the campaign or whatever it is that's been launched or offered, something new that's been done. And evaluation is always tied into it. And then we have this sort of area where we do some risk assessment, but it's only because you've been able to do smart objectives that you are capturing insight, you are measuring the performance of things, and you are evaluating based on what people are saying, that starts to give you this sort of intelligence, this intel that you need in order to sort of understand, well, who is my audience? How do they behave? What do they say? And you start to build this picture, this avatar of your audience, of your customer. You start to build up this sort of insight that you can actually begin to sort of like dump into a document. And some bigger operations are able to have a whole team dedicated to insight gathering, or they will have the ability, the budget to outsource this to a company. For you, for a small to medium sized businesses, perhaps you're a solopreneur, there's that word, more jargon, I'm sorry. For you, you've got to try and figure a way of inputting this into your process on a weekly basis, perhaps. Well, not perhaps, I would really advise it. Because when you are planning all of your activity, your social media, your content, all of this stuff that you're putting out there with calls to action for the things that you're offering and for the value that you're offering, you want to try and track it, the performance of it. How is it landing with your audience? And so it's really important for you to have some kind of a PR strategy in place, even if it's just a one pager, that you will iterate on, because you will iterate. You will change and tweak it. It will evolve, because that's actually how PR works when you're doing public relations and communications for any brand. Because the brand is a living organism, what you're going to have to do is constantly check on how things are going. Let's say you are a creator in the commentary socio-political space, things are always changing. As soon as someone has clipped something that you've said, it's now out there, and that's something that you're going to have to, well, perhaps you don't, but you want to respond to. I mean, you don't want to get cancelled, and I've got a free ebook about that, and you can find that on my site as well. You don't want to get cancelled, the things that you want to do to avoid to get cancelled. And the biggest thing I would say, the biggest takeaway, is that when you are doing this forecasting, this planning, you start to create some lines. We call them lines. You can call them sentences, some messages that you have ready to literally copy and paste into that tweet, that X post, whatever it is, wherever it is that you have to make that statement, put out that statement, respond. And by doing that prep, you actually have the lines rehearsed already in your mind. And it's not fear mongering. It's not that you are almost planning for some tragedy or crisis to take place, but you are prepared. That's the main thing. You've got to be absolutely prepared. That's what PR does essentially. It prepares a brand, it prepares an entity for not only any negativity but also positivity, so that you're able to manage things better. If something goes awry, you have to then contact all your stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders? Have you done that bit of work where you have literally done an Excel spreadsheet and a list of who are all my stakeholders? Okay, so I've got my Patreon members, my patrons, social media. So I've got Instagram, people who've subscribed and joined who pay me something, a YouTube person, an investor, a customer for that product, a customer for this service, a newsletter person. So you've those are all your different stakeholders, um, business partners, sponsors. So now you've listed them all. Each one of them can be found on this email or through this way of communicating with them. And what is their interest? What is their expectation from me? What do they want to hear from me? Well, the investor wants to know if their investment is secure, if they're still going to get paid. So you're going to have to write that message in a different way. Whereas people on Instagram are probably wanting more transparency from you. But then you've got to make sure that that transparency, if seen by a shareholder, an investor, doesn't necessarily do this thing where it's actually contradicting each other. That's where the planning comes in. You plan. So I'm actually saying this with a heads up that I have a new course that's being devised right now, and that is putting a PR strategy, a plan together for you, a brand, a business that doesn't have PR. Because as I was creating the free ebook, as I was creating the reputational management course, I realized, I think what we need is a really detailed PR strategy plan where I synthesize the PR speak that we in public relations, in my vocation as a chartered public relations practitioner, and I've been doing it for 20 plus years. There's sort of language that we use within our training, but I want to sort of simplify it, synthesize that information so that you can use it and you can implement it in your business, in your brand. And this is so that you are covered. This is the idea. The idea is for you to protect the thing that you most cherish, and that is your brand. It's your baby, it's your business. You've worked so hard on it. If you've been doing it alone, you want to make sure you're prepared. It's just being prepared. And it's a case of maybe half an hour a week, an hour in depth every month, where you do a bit of a deep dive into the insights, where you capture some sentiments. What is the press saying? What is that blogger saying? How did that influencer do the campaign that we asked them to? So you're tracking all of this. You might find that you do this in different parts of your business, but this is a very focused, deliberate, intentional way for you to do this, to cover your bag. And that's what I'm here for. I've got your bag. So if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so. Like, join. Well, I don't think join will be available yet. I'm a new channel, but my site is available. My courses are there, and I will see you in the next episode.